Hello there, guitar enthusiasts. Today I've got something very interesting for you. Following with my past videos about these forgotten jewels that are completely underrated and that you can find for very little money, I got myself this Fender Stratocaster. Oh, wait a sec. It's not a Fender, it's a Squier. But check out what it says over there. It's made in Japan. So it's an Squier made in Japan. So a couple of things about this. If you're familiar with Japanese guitars, especially with Fender Japan, you'll know that they are very high quality instruments and that they do what you expect out of a great guitar. They stay in tune very well, they play very well, and they sound very, very good. Now the story about this one is actually, it was the luck. I was minding my own business in a local music store. I was going to buy a couple packs of strings, and I just checked out their used gear section, and I saw they had like 3-4 Squiers, and this one got my attention because I had never seen a bridge like this in a Squier or in a Fender for the same matter. And I thought, well, you know, that's very interesting. That got my attention, and also the cream pickups. So I thought I would take a look at it, and then I was very surprised when I saw that the sticker says it's made in Japan. I mean, the sticker, not the sticker, the headstock. So I was very curious about it. My very first guitar that I ever had was a Squier, a black Squier. And I remember that one guitar as being very painful to play. The action was not very good. It did not sound very good either. But you know, it's your first guitar, so I guess it's okay in a way, right? I had it for a little while. Then I think I bought an Epiphone Les Paul or something like that, and I moved on. And I never had any other Fender Squiers afterwards, until this point in time. So when I saw this one, like I said, it was a little strange because I wasn't expecting that it would be built in Japan. I did not expect this type of locking nut, but it's not really a nut, locking thing over here, which by the way is missing the rod, so it's not locking anymore on this particular one. One of these screws seemed to have been overscrewed, and I still have it, but it doesn't do anything, so I decided to remove it. So I plugged it in and I start to play, and then I realized that it's actually a very, very, very easy guitar to play. It's very comfortable. The neck profile, it feels to me a little thinner than most Strats that I've had, but not extremely thin, just a little bit. It's glossy, but it doesn't really stick in your hands. It's actually very comfortable, and it sounded very much like a Strat. Now, if you're thinking, well, it has to, right, because it's a Strat. Well, not really, because many models that I tried, Fender Strats, meaning like legitimate Fenders, they don't have this quack, this classic sound that we all identify as very Stratty. And this one does have it. So when I look at the price tag and I see that it's under $200, I thought, okay, I guess this is the beginning of my weekend. And I took it home. The action is very low. Actually, I might have to raise it a little bit. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get you a shot of how nice it is. And it stays in tune very well. The bridge, that's something that I really like. The bridge is a 2-pivot point, which is what you get now in the nicer Fender models, and it's got a mass to it, I guess. That's why I'm getting like a lot of sustain with this guitar and a lot of bright resonance. or if that's not the reason, maybe it's only in my head, but I actually like it anyways. And that's pretty much it. Rosewood fingerboard. The frets are very thin. It feels like vintage. I guess but not. Okay, allow me to explain. The truss rod is not here. It's located here, like in the reissue models, which is an absolute pain that I hate, because every time that the season changes or the room gets cold or hot, I presume I'm gonna have to adjust the truss rod. And on a guitar like this, you have to unbolt the neck or unbolt the pick guard to access it. And unbolting the pick guard, it's almost as big as a pain as unbolting the neck, so it's not ideal. That being said, this one I have not had any trouble with. I've had it for a couple months now, and it's been extremely stable. I have not had to adjust anything yet back there, so that's pretty good. Intonation is good, and it was a little bit off, and I was able to adjust it in no time and quite effortlessly. And the overall feel of the instrument is great. It feels like a very expensive guitar, only it is not. So some people get very turned off by the headstock saying Squier instead of Fender. If you can pass that and you get one of these, I'm pretty confident you will not regret it if you get one of the Japanese ones. I have not had an opportunity to check any of the other ones, but this one feels amazing. In fact, I thought it was very interesting because I have here a Fender Japan Stratocaster, one of the newer ones. As you can see, this is a full Fender. Let's see where it says. There you go, made in Japan. And it's basically I would say the same guitar, but it is not really. But it's a very similar guitar. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you a few details that makes a difference between the two of them. Whoops, I just hit the camera. But before, I was losing my train of thought before. I was telling you that this guitar felt classic, but not. It felt classic because of the truss rod feature. It felt modern because of the bridge and the action and how sleek the neck is. And it still feels also kind of classic because of the frets are really thin. Or they feel very thin to me in comparison to any other guitars that I have right now. So it's a little strange. Maybe it's an experiment. Maybe they wanted I don't know, not really the vintage look, because it doesn't really look like that. I don't know what they were going for, but I do like the result, even though it's a little odd. So I'm gonna give you a fair one-to-one comparison so you can see what is it that I found different about an actual Fender Japan versus a Squier made in Japan. First thing off, this one, the Squier, it's an 87 actually. So this is 1987. And this one is 2004. So it's 15-ish, 20 years later. This is fairly recent. This is called the STD, that stands for, as you are probably thinking, standard. Okay, the first thing that struck me outside of the obvious bridge and nut thing is that this one in the back is got the stripe that you find in most struts, and this one does not. It's supposed to be the place that you use to install the truss rod, I think. And it's supposed to bring stability because it's a different type of wood that's also very stable. That being said, I have not noticed any issues with this one. It just stays fine. So that's one of the differences. What else? The finish on the neck. On the Japanese version of Fender, the more modern one, it feels like there's almost no finish. I don't know if that's the case, but it feels almost like it's an oil or something really light. The Squier has a thick finish to it. Some people don't like that because they feel like the thumb gets stuck. And I'm telling you this just because I saw people reviewing guitars and complaining about the lacquer in the back of the neck. I have to say I have never ever had a problem with that. So it's hard for me to plug myself into the situation where you cannot move your thumb because of the lacquer. But since it seems to be a problem for some folks, I thought it would be worth mentioning. What else? What else do I see here? Oh, the pickups. The pickups on this one are a bit more high gain than in the other ones, but still sound very Fendery. This one sounds a bit more like a US model, meaning that the output is much lower than this one. And I don't know, you also get quite a bit of a whack on this one, but I'm not implying that this one sounds better than this one. In fact, I will have a hard time deciding. I enjoy the sound of the two very much. If anything, I think I play more the Squier, just because it was so cheap. If I hit something, it's not really a big deal. It came with a bunch of nicks and things like this, but I don't really care. They are not very visible from the front, and it does not affect anything. So that's that. I think this is, I don't know what type of red this is. The other one is apple, candy apple. When it comes to action, this one has a little bit of a higher action. When I adjust the action, I try to get it usually as low as possible. And I notice if I go much lower than this, it does not sound the way it should. It gets a little bit of fret bass, not a whole lot, nothing that prevents you from playing or enjoying the guitar, but it's not the same. So in order to keep this one sounding the way it should, the action has to be medium low, but not really low. And I think this is it. This is just what you expect from a Strat. Like I said, this is the STD, standing for standard model. Oh yeah, the frets. Let me see. I don't think I can get you up to see the height of the frets, but on this one they are definitely wider and a little taller than on this one. These ones are really thin, and it's not because it's been used, which it has been, because when I look at the ones at the end, which are usually the ones that carry less wear in any guitar you use, because people don't stay here as much as they stay in the first 3 frets. So these ones are kind of like the ones that usually give away what they looked like, or close to what they looked like in the beginning. And I know some of you may argue, well, what if it was dressed or leveled or something? Yeah, you're right. But that doesn't always happen. You can get one like this for between 200 to 300. They made a few different models. They made them with this bridge, and they made them with the regular bridge. So you have plenty to choose from. Oh, the one thing. This bridge, I have no idea which trem arm I can fit there. I tried everything, nothing works. So I guess it was something very specific. And this particular one did not come with one. So no, I think I'm out of luck on that one. If you have to choose between this one and the regular one, the one with the regular bridge, I will encourage you to get the regular bridge if you use the trem, because I bet it's gonna be easier to replace than on this one. But if you get one with the trem, I suspect this is one of those trems that you just press in and out. And I like that a lot because I don't really like wasting time having to roll it. If any of these facts or mentions that I made is inaccurate, please feel free to leave a comment, correct me, and help other folks to find their ideal guitar around the net. I think I covered everything about this one and the standard model. When it comes to weight, that was another one. This weighs more than the other one. The Squier is a little lighter. This feels exactly like my USA Strat when it comes to weight. But I can tell you, this is just a feel, there's nothing scientific here, but the neck and the headstock on this one, the way they have been finished, the truss rod is here, that's big advantage by the way, it feels cheaper than the Squier. I have to say also, if you are familiar with the Japanese models, that the standard model is the cheaper one they make, or one of the cheaper ones they make in Japan, in Fender Japan. They have the reissues, they have a lot of stuff going on. But this is one of the cheaper ones. And nothing wrong with it, really. I actually like it a lot. It was fairly inexpensive as well. But if I have to be fair, I like the Squier's neck a little better than this one. And it's not because of this one, because the neck on this one was perfect. There's nothing I can complain about. But I think the Squier one is just a little bit smoother. And I don't know, it's easier to play for some reason. Well, that was the comparison / review of the forgotten jewels of this week. The Fender, let me see, Fender Squier Japan from the late 80s and the Fender Stratocaster made in Japan from the mid-early 2000s. There you go. Feel free to leave any comments or questions that you may have. If I haven't posted any audio samples of these two guitars, I might do it soon. So be patient. I'm not set up to do it right now, but I felt it would be interesting for somebody looking for those guitars to know a little bit more about them from a player's perspective. As you may know already, I don't ever go through the specifications, don't go through the specs, because that's something you can very easily find. I try to give you something that you wouldn't get just out of the specs page, which is a little bit of a comparison. I also have, something that I keep going back and forth with this. This is the last comment that I'm going to make. This is a MIJ Strat. The neck on this one, when it comes to the finish, it's something between the other two. So if you're familiar with Fender made in Mexico, and this one is 2012, if you're familiar with them and you know how much finish they usually have in their neck, this one is between the other two. So the Squier is the one with more lacquer in the neck. This one is in between, and the standard model is the one that has barely any. And once again, I don't know if that's something you like or not. I don't particularly care for it, but again, I know many people really do have a thing with the finish on the back of the neck, so I thought it would be worth mentioning. And I think this is it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to stay tuned for future reviews and tricks and licks and stuff, then feel free to subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.